Friends, family, and everyone in between. You are listening to another exciting edition of the FillGood podcast, the podcast where we chat with interesting people and learn about the things that make them feel good and the good they put in the world. I am one of your hosts, Mike Osgood.
And I'm another one of your hosts, Byron Filler.
And we're here. We're alive and we're kicking. Okay. Byron, what's good with you?
No. We have to talk about the new thing in your life. What I have going on in my life is not as important as you just getting a dog.
I got a dog.
Yeah, get a dog.
Got a dog. She's asleep over here. She looks like a little furry croissant. And she's adorable.
Tell us about your new dog.
Okay, so I got a new dog. Her name is Rosie. She is a rescue. She is 2 years old. She is a Dutch Spaniel, and she's adorable. And she's sick. So we rescued her last weekend, and since then we've been having to give her all the pills and learning all the joys of how much a vet cost and all those fun things. But she is stupidly adorable and a little ray of furry sunshine. And we've gotten catcalled a couple of times with how cute she is. Yeah. Or dog called.
People know it.
Yeah, people know it. We went for a walk the other afternoon, and we were just walking, and this couple was driving this BMW or something. The woman rolled down her window and yelled at us, "Hey, your dog is so cute." I'm like, yes, she is. Yes, she is. Thank you for noticing.
You know, the curse of this is that eventually she's gonna know it. Rosie's gonna know it, and she's going to exploit that for the rest of her life.
Oh, I'm 100% expecting her to exploit it. She already is running up to a bit of everybody to try to say hey, but we can't have her say hey to everybody because she has kennel cough. So in order to, it's like doggy coronavirus. We can't let her go talk to people. She has to be socially distant. We have to keep her away from other dogs until she gets through all of her antibiotics. But she is a silly, crazy ray of sunshine. Y'all have seen her on our Instagram, and we'll continue to see her because she is a little bundle of personality, and we love her.
Marissa and I, when you guys sent us the photo initially, we had to video chat with you guys because we were so excited. She seemed so happy and so perfect. I remember you guys telling us we may look at some other dogs, and the second you said that, she put her paw on your chest and as if to be no, you're not. No, now she does that every day when she's like, "Excuse me, please give me more pets, please." I'll lay down on the ground with her, then she'll give me a little southpaw to the jaw and be like, "Excuse me, psh, pet me more." I'm like, "Okay, fine." But no, the fun part is that video chat that you guys had with us when we were adopting her, the woman who was doing all of our paperwork was like, "Did I hear squeals coming from the other room?" I was like, "Yes, you did. You absolutely did." That was us.
That was you. That was you and Marissa.
No shame. Yeah. Squeal.
You are a squealer.
Yeah.
But what's making you squeal this week?
Oh, well, it's on this recording. It was just Memorial Day.
It was.
So this past weekend was a long, nice weekend. I watched my little cousin get bat mitzvahed this weekend, and it was actually really awesome. So her and her mom are huge Disney nerds, and they could not do a big reception because there's still all the COVID regulations, and we're just very lucky we were even able to be there at any capacity. But all of the prayers were sung to the tune of Disney songs, and it was so fucking awesome.
I don't even know how that sounds. Can you give us a little demonstration?
Um, I'm not a I'm not a cantor, so
Yes, you are.
I look.
Not with that attitude.
Viewers, listeners, excuse me. I'm gonna make I'm Jewish, but I'm like Jew-ish. So I'm gonna do a prayer that I know and butcher the living shit out of it to a whole new world.
This is everything I want this podcast to be and more. Please bless our ears with a Jewish prayer to the tune of A Whole New World.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech I don't know the rest of it's like the most basic prayer for candles, and I'm already losing it. That's basically the gist of it, and that was beautiful. The entire service, and it made my whole weekend.
That was so good. That was beautiful, and I am so grateful that you gave us that. I'm so grateful. I'm glad you got to experience that bat mitzvah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I'm sure there's a recording of it somewhere that I will have to find just so that you can get a preview of the songs. But her cantor was has the voice of a Disney princess, so she sold it.
Nice.
But yeah, the rest of this weekend has just been like some much needed rest. Otherwise,
that's good.
I can't remember the last time I slept till noon, and
Jesus.
Especially like my body clock these days is just deciding to get up at random hours. Like one of the cats will come and wake us up at like 8 o'clock on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll wake up for a second just to be like, oh, okay, yeah, cat is here, and then I'll go back to sleep, and then my body's like, well, you're awake now.
Oh,
and that's it.
That's been us this entire week.
Yeah,
we've been up at 6:45 ish every day because we have to wake up, give this dog a pill, try to go back to sleep if we can.
Yeah.
If not, wake up, go take the dog for like a mile-long walk to try to go pee and poop. It not go poop, but it goes pee. And then do the whole song and dance again in a couple hours, and then do it all again in another couple hours. And that's the life of being a dog owner. But it's fun times.
Who also knows about the life of peeing, pooping, and very little sleep?
Who's that?
Our guest this week.
Zack
Rosenberg.
That's the best.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna do that.
No, we're keeping this. Tell us about Zack Rosenberg.
I'm sorry, Zack. Zack is a good friend of mine from middle school. We've known each other forever. He is a neurodivergent creator. He's one half of Frenemy Studios, and they make cartoons and comics. And he also works at Tumblr, doing social content moderation. And he's just ever since I've known him, the most positive person that I've ever met. He does some, you'll hear this, he does some really intense work and still has the amount of optimism that he has. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
But why don't we let him tell everybody how good he is? Yeah. Shall we let them listen?
Let's do you bring it on in.
Let's do it. All right. Ready?
Thank you, everybody, for staying with us during the dance break. I know. We have fun music here. So we are here with the wonderful, the exuberantly positive, the smiley man himself. It's Zack Rosenberg.
Woo!
Oh, hello.
Look at that
Whee!
smile. Look
I
at
don't know.
that
Can you
face.
hear me smiling? Because I'm actually smiling.
It's ringing in my ears.
Science proves that you can, in fact, hear a smile.
Here, yeah.
Is that legitimate?
That's legitimate.
They
And like
say that
sales. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No. I went. My major in college was hospitality, and they say they can hear a smile on the phone.
Yeah,
And
and communications, which
Yeah.
I majored in, they tell you like anytime you hop on the phone and you're chatting with somebody, you want to smile because it can genuinely change your inflection in how you talk, in what the people will perceive. So I'm smiling right now. Can't you tell by sound a little bit? Yeah, it's really good. But Zach, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good. I actually spent the weekend. I had my good friend who lives in Germany come into the city, New York City, and I got to hang out with him. Because COVID had he's from New York. He married a German woman and has a little boy, and it was just like a joy to hang out with him and be a nerd. We went just to like all the nerdy shops, which is what I call my nerd street tour in New York City. It is not patent pending. Where
Do you
I take
go hit
my
like
friends.
the pizza shop that Spider-Man went to and things like that?
No, it's more selfish than that. Like it's like this bookshop and this video game store, and girls just want to have fun and just want to go shopping, But yeah, no, it's really great. We hit all the comic shops, all the video game shops, and then like eat ramen, which was not the best idea, being it was like 90 degrees and humid. But I stand by my thought that if it's really cold air conditioning in the restaurant, it's a perfect day always for ramen. So
I will second that. Agreed.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time. So I had a great weekend.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad to hear that. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit from all of this goodness that we've heard you about. We're gonna get back into it in a second, but we're gonna start out with our moment of bad. We're gonna take 60 seconds on the clock. Hopefully, we're gonna go through and let out one bad, and then we're gonna let it go. We're gonna begone it. I will start off this week. My moment of bad is that since the CDC recommendation said that people who have vaccines can go out without a mask, I've started seeing commercials that say, we're back. America's back.
America.
And yeah, no, it's a lot of enthusiasm for it's just so, to me it just feels like bad timing. I'm excited myself to get back into the real world and for things to resume, but we are nowhere near herd immunity right now, and we just and people are still dealing with the psychological issues of being in a pandemic, and also just still needing to get a vaccination. Look, these commercials, I don't want you to be here in the first place because it's just tasteless, but be gone. And if you have to come back, just wait a minute, please.
You don't want to be the company that you're like, too soon.
Yeah, you don't, exactly. It's the too soon element.
They're not going to act like it is, because they're these large corporate entities they're the same groups that have a Twitter that's like, hey, we're your best bro, and we're talking about pizza that you should totally buy from us, or ride shares that they're trying to act like they're people. They're not people.
They're social media experts.
Yeah, be gone with your falsehoods and your fake identities and all that kind of stuff, and give us a goddamn minute.
Be gone.
Be gone.
I will go next. My bad of the week. I just rescued a dog. And my wallet feels it. In 2 days, I've paid quite a substantial sum of rescuing a dog who happened to have kennel cough and a couple other things. And our rescue spot didn't tell us this. And it's fun times. It's great. It's great. Everything's fine. But I just want to take some negative energy that has come from vet bills that just kind of and I'm gonna be gone it. So be gone. Be
gone. Vet bills, be gone.
Be gone. Yeah. But Zach, what's going bad in your world?
I'm. It's so hard for me to think of something bad. I'm such a, as I joke to people, a naive optimist. But I like to see the positive side of things. So I think if I were to really crystallize what my bad is this week, it's really an element that I can't control, which is similar to the two of you, is sleep regression for my infant son. More primarily in relation to his teeth hasn't popped yet. So he's going to be 10 months this coming week, and we've not been getting great sleep because we wake up and our gums hurt. And that wakes up mom and dad, and then we're all just up crying because our gums hurt, really. So that is my bad. I just want my son's teeth to pop so we can get out of this sleep regression.
Take that sleep regression and make it into sleep progression and be gone!
Be gone, pain, and hello, teeth.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. I swear, I think it's going to be like 8 teeth at once. Like, just give it to me,
It's just got to be like instantaneously overnight teeth.
Yeah. I do like, though, because he's a very smiley baby. I really don't know what we're doing right. He has the gummiest smile, so it's just like a baby with no teeth, just like constantly. I swear, he looks like a Goomba from the live-action Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my god!
No teeth, just like all smile, no teeth, just a gummy, like happy to see you. And then I just think of that elevator scene in that movie that I adore. That movie's awful, but it's great to me. So
it does have a special place in my heart too, just because it's one of those movies that is just so bad, but you kind of just have to enjoy it for its awfulness. Especially like loving Super Mario so much.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you guys both watched that when you were like much younger too, correct?
Oh yeah.
So it's one
like
of those
if you're
things
older, you're not gonna like it.
Yeah, no. But if you watched it like close to when it came out, when you were like, for me, I was a child, and I remember being like, "Oh, Super Mario! Oh, this is so cool! This is so cool!" And I'm sure my parents, who probably don't even remember the movie, were like, "What are we watching? What are we watching? Why does Super Mario have a flamethrower? This does not make sense." But it's good.
Yeah,
it's a cult classic.
It also
There's actually a really cool, I think, Vulture or Verve article about the insane development process of that movie. I'm plugging. Yes, I don't even work for Vulture or Verve. I don't remember who wrote it, but it's pretty awesome.
But
just
speaking of who you work for, Zack Rosenberg, can you give us that introduction of yourself for all those people who don't know about the magicalness of you? Can you tell the people, what's your story? What is your origin story?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I'm 32 going on to 33. I'll be 33 in August. I majored actually in college in hospitality. I love people, but I didn't enjoy the aspect of the hospitality industry, especially in New York City. So I kind of gear shifted to more of my creative passions. And I kind of discovered this about myself actually in college. I applied for a Marvel Comics internship, got the internship, and then went on to work at Marvel. And at Marvel, I met a fellow intern by the name of Victor Fuste. He was an NYU grad student, and for some reason he liked me. He's the if you've ever seen The Odd Couple, he's the Walter to my naive positive Felix. And we founded a company. I stayed at Marvel, then I stayed kind of in comics publishing. He went on to more development in film and animation, primarily Frame Store. They do like the Geico commercials and visual effects. And then went on to DreamWorks PDI, which was their NorCal campus, working on How to Train Your Dragon, all those movies. And then about 5 years ago, they closed that DreamWorks PDI campus. And I was just more working in freelance comics, and we decided to open our own company called Frenemy Studios. Again, to really be the Walter to my Felix, right? We're frenemies. And we are an IP incubator. We develop cartoons, animation for feature and television, and comics. We have a current original graphic novel in development right now with a company called Inside Editions. Working on 2 comic pitches right now. We've pitched a ton of animation, and we're currently pitching a new show. We're going to a bunch of production companies and showrunners, and yeah, we just got to keep putting our foot in the door. We've had a lot of cool meetings, a lot of cool little wins, but not the big win, and you can't let that deter you. So I actually do this on my spare time. Frenemies is unfortunately not my full-time job. I wish it was. That's my end goal. While we founded Frenemy, I also got a job at Tumblr. It's the microblogging platform that hosts every type of medium of media, so audio, visual. It's almost like Twitter, but just a different functionality to it. And at Tumblr, that's a very interesting job. I work in our legal team. I'm a content moderation. My actual title is senior content analyst. I've actually been there 7 years. It's a long time for
that
tech,
is a long
especially.
time.
Yeah. I hit 7 years last week, actually. And what's amazing is, first of all, I really have always appreciated Tumblr because they've allowed me to pursue my creative passions. I've been very respectful of that. So, really appreciate them letting me balance both hats, so to speak. But it's interesting work because it's content moderation, right? So we're considered a platform that hosts UGC. UGC stands for user-generated content. So any type of platform or social media company that hosts UGC comes with a plethora of problems. Anything from adult content to illegal content to privacy infringement to copyright infringement. And I've just seen it all. I've seen every gross thing under the sun. So you'd think I'd go insane by now, but I haven't yet. I've worked on very
surprised.
Yeah, right? What's interesting is I started the team, it was 6 people, and now it's like 22. And we do a really good job in the hiring process of kind of hiring the right person who has the right mentality. Because resiliency to absorbing that content is a huge priority to make sure our content moderators are keeping mentally safe. So it's a lot of like-minded people. You think, like, I'm cheery. Like, a lot of people on my team have the kind of same disposition. And that's nice. It's nice to be surrounded by people who we can rely on each other. There's elements of gallows humor. There's elements of hard days where we kind of help each other up. Truthfully speaking, I had a hard day on Friday. I had a really hard day with content, and I'm empowered to take the day off if I need to, because the burnout would be more damaging than the idea of just pushing through it. And that's such a rare thing to see tech companies. I feel like, or any company, no one really talks about burnout. I think this pandemic has shined a light on burnout on general, and it's nice to have a more two-way conversation about how burnout could affect your efficiency at work. Anyways, I'm kind of going all over the place.
No. I think that's a great place to start. Burnout is, I think, a hard thing for people to talk about, especially because it just manifests so differently for everyone. And especially with what you do, and what your team does, I can imagine burnout comes very easy because you are, you're dealing with the worst of the internet. I was actually wondering, can you take us through what that looks like, the world of creating internet policy and content moderation? Because I think we all kind of have an idea of what that's supposed to be, but never really see the other side of it.
Sure. I mean, that's such a great question. And the first thing I want to say is if a policy is made, it's constantly being discussed and picked at to see if we could do better. Tumblr is famously known about 2 years ago for removing all porn or adult content off the platform. And the conversations prior to those decisions were difficult. Look, I am a huge proponent of I don't want to work the healthy and safe sex working community. I think that's harmful to that community. But we also want to remove straight up porn and spam from the platform. So it was endless conversations of well, how do we word this in our policies that are fair and firm and know the boundaries from. So like there's that famous line of female displaying nipples. There's been a lot of memes about it on Tumblr itself. And there, yes, it's gender specific because we actually didn't want to harm the trans community in chronicling their journeys on our platform. You know, so transition photos are actually allowed. Transition nudity photos are allowed on the platform. Nursing and breastfeeding photos are allowed on the platform. Protesting nudity is allowed on the platform. And those types of dialogues and verbiage, right, are very difficult to kind of publish and see how people will interpret it, because we have to see it two ways. We have to see how would people abuse these community guidelines and how people will understand these community guidelines. And the hardest thing in that whole umbrella of those two sides is user education. Like, how are we going to educate our users to understand those differences? Like, I cannot tell you how many times we get reports for hate speech when it's not actionable hate speech. You know, it's just what we classify as shitty opinion, right?
Yeah.
And those parameters are very difficult. There's a lot of gray area. And like, how do you action a Nazi blog that may say, I'm actually a historical blog chronicling what happened in World War II, versus someone sharing Nazi imagery and inciting hate? Do you see how like complicated that is? Like that's like it's bananas. And what I'm getting at here is we're constantly calibrating. We're constantly reassessing our community guidelines. We're constantly challenging each other of like, how can we create a safe and thriving space on the internet? And a lot of companies like Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest, like and Tumblr, like really try their best to just get ahead of the curve. Unfortunately, like this pandemic, and I'm going to remove my opinion as much as possible, our former president, as I bite my lip, created a lot of problems with misinformation, right? Like how do platforms fact check misinformation, spread misinformation? And like that's the wild conversation in trust and safety right now. I'm like super fascinated. I actually thought Twitter did a great job with 45 tweets where they added a buffer being like, this is actually factually incorrect, but we're not removing the content. You just have to click it twice to see the content. You have to see the warning. The problem with that requires a lot of bandwidth, right? That actually requires a human moderator to fact check what 45 was saying, and then engineering to create the banner that is clickable. Do you see like how all these? It's not just like an easy drop down, like you can automate that. No, it's like 5 individuals, then a lawyer approving it. Like it's just a lot of things that are taken into consideration that go into user and internet policy. But like I can safely say with confidence that not just Tumblr is constantly looking at community guidelines and legal policy. That like the stories are changing. Like I think the beauty and the curse of the internet is how it disseminates information, right? So like we're able to talk to each other. We're able to connect with our people more. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Mm-hmm. But there comes another side to that coin, right? Where bad people are talking to each other. We're in these echo chambers. And like, where is that spot that we can make thriving communities grow and have the world be connected and feel safe? So I hope that answers your question.
No, that does. I was gonna say like you said something interesting that's made me think. I didn't actually think of the more. I think we've talked about like technology in the past and really trying to find the line between like what is like the technology and like built as technology versus the human elements of this. And something you're kind of bringing up is like, oh, well, 45, I like just calling him 45 rather than just like saying his name.
His name angers me, so like it's like I just have to say a number. I have to give him a number. So,
but that's the thing is like what kept happening with him is that a lot of what was kind of just happening with his content is it was constantly being validated, and especially if you're moderating content like that is that's something I've always thought is like, well, what's the line of like if you like get rid of someone's post, how much more does it end up just empowering them to just go back and do it more and do it harder?
It's wild to have someone in a position of power give such false information.
Yeah.
But the dichotomy of like, well, he's our our leader, right? He's our elected leader. He is spewing factual, incorrect information. And where do we draw that line? And that's such a hard line to draw in any type of, I mean, even just on a user level, like just like you see someone who, let's say a teacher was saying, as a teacher you well respected, was just spewing incorrect information. Like, how do you digest that, right? And how do you handle that? Anyways, it's a lot of what ifs, but I think I think it's still a lot of work ahead of us. Nothing's perfect, but I really, being 7 years at Tumblr, I can attest that we're constantly looking at how we can do things better.
I was gonna say, how has the system evolved just from day one to day however many it is now?
I think it's evolved because I'm an expert, right? So I've lived in it for so long. I think it's more like where the world's evolved. Like, privacy laws has changed significantly in the UK. There's a law called the GDPR, which is how companies retain user information. Versus, the United States has yet to catch up to that. California specifically has. So, like, you see how, if you remember the massive iCloud leak, right, of all the photos, like that changed privacy law. So then that in effect changes companies that host UGC content, because you're going to get that content on your platform. So it's just it's hard to be proactive. It's often reactive. And I hope that one day there are ways where we can proactively protect our users, because at the end of the day, that's our obligation, is to protect our users and their information. Tenfold. So I think the industry, I think trust and safety is becoming more important. I've seen a lot more need and necessity and like topics of conversation for sure. Excuse me. And the election is like with 45 was I think put a huge magnifying glass on that. So
yeah,
absolutely.
So one thing I'm wondering about, because we talked a little before this interview, and something you brought up to us, I was hoping you could elaborate a little bit on, is that your approach to all of this work is that you have to assume good intent of everyone who produces or creates content on these social media platforms. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I'm just going to, slight correction, is more like assume positive intent when we action policy. So like, I think it's a great lesson I've learned, and something that I'm going to carry throughout my entire career, including with frenemy stuff, is that when you're working on something that you're sensitive by, right? Look, I have a lot of friends, I'm Jewish, and the Israel-Palestine conflict is a very difficult conversation, right? And you see people criticize Israel, and that doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic. You're just having a conversation. And what I'm telling my Jewish friends who are looking for some identity in this difficult topic is like, listen to what people are saying. Assume some positive intent in this difficult conversation. So it's kind of a line we use on my team just when we're talking difficult policy, or we're looking at what a user is what is the core message of the user's post or their content? Is it incitement of hate, or are they having a conversation about difficult topics? So it's something that we mostly look at internally, especially when someone's like, hey, there's this post that's concerning. I don't think it's hate speech. It's very difficult to look at. Let's look at different opinions on this. And whoever may have a dissenting opinion, the core of it is you assume that they have positive intent when they're surfacing those concerns. Whether it's a difficult thing or not, like, it's a good philosophy to have when you're talking about decisions or how we represent ourselves or how we move forward on things. It's just a good way to look at the world, especially when we're in a world where there are a lot of dissenting opinions. I'll never know what it's like to be black in America, right? You know, in the whole Black Lives Matter movement, you know, but I want to be a great ally, and I want to provide as someone who is white as best safe space for that community, you know, and that want and need is my positive intent. I want you to, like, me asking, like, how can I be better, be an ally? I'm hoping that we can move forward and provide safe spaces for everyone. I hope that answers your question. I feel like I got jumbled there, so I apologize.
No, it's okay. That very often happens here, where we get a bunch of different ideas that kind of cross with each other. Yeah, but that's the thing. All these things are connected. We're talking, you know, especially when we're talking about diversity. Anyways, we're talking about many different issues. They all feed into one another.
Yeah, it's difficult. You know, it's surprising. I've had a lot of conversations again about the Israel-Palestine thing, and I want to view everyone's opinion as their right to that opinion, and like to have a positive conversation about it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that is the first spark of change, right? So.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said, and something that I've greatly admired just about everything that you just said, which is kind of coming at these things with positive intent and positive just like responses, because very much in our society now, we live in kind of a soundbite culture, which could be taken like one thing out of context, and then someone could have a negative connotation that comes from that. But being able to just take a step back and look at the big picture, it's something that's hard to do, and I would just want you to know you got respect over here, and we very much appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off something what you just said. I thank you for that, but also I think the thing to stress is that, look, when we're especially talking about difficult subjects like Black Lives Matter or the Israel-Palestine conflict, like, your emotions and your reaction is valid. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be upset. I want to normalize that. That's like almost like I want to be less defensive and more open to like why you feel this way. So when I say I assume positive intent, it's never dismissive. I feel like I want to stress that point where like the emotional backing of how you are digesting these movements or this pain or joy, whatever that is attached to it, is 110% valid. And my assumption or like philosophy of assuming that a positive intent is giving you a safe space to have those feelings, and then have a conversation to move hopefully positively forward. And it's it's messy, it's complicated, but I think we could all do better just listening to each other and giving us our space to feel heard.
But speaking of creating these positive spaces and just being able to listen and have your opinions heard, how do you carry this thought process into your work at Frenemy Studios?
Yeah, absolutely. It again, it's something I carry with me tenfold. Like it's just a philosophy. It's how I communicate with my wife when she's upset. I just want her emotions to have space and to like feel heard, and for me to digest that information, whenever she's struggling with something. And then on a frenemy capacity, absolutely, my writing partner laughs, or kind of groans when we're in pitch meetings. They'll be like, so why are you called Frenemy Studios? And I love this question in a pitch meeting. And
so
this
tell
is
us
like
why you're
meetings,
called Frenemy Studios.
in meetings with Disney or Netflix, I am like unashamed. And I'll be like,
you're speaking now. You're speaking now to above Disney. You're speaking to the FillGood podcast. We are the tip top creators. So I would love to know, why are you called Frenemy Studios?
So imagine my Walter and I'm Felix, right? We're in this speech meeting. I'm like, well, executive, FillGood podcast. It's our safe word. And then I let like the awkward like pause and then the groan from my writing partner Victor. And I'm like, it's our safe word, when we're arguing story, like when we're very stubborn, or when we're struggling to crack a story or dialogue, and we'll be like, frenemy. And it's like our reality check of just like, oh, we're very touchy or passionate about this story element or this character note or this beat. Like, I'm saying that to my writing partner to like, let's take a moment to like listen to what I'm trying to say or like articulate. And it always gets laughs in a meeting room, and then it groans from my writing partner. I think it breaks the ice a little bit too. But it is, we're like, frenemy. Like, we're currently developing a new feature idea that I'm really excited about. And I've got my frenemy equipped and ready, when we're getting into the huge dev side of this feature pitch we want to get started. So
get it.
I'm very excited for that.
Byron, I think our keyword's gonna have to be Rosenberg from now on. So anytime we start having our creative differences, we'll be Rosenberg. It'll be great.
Rosenberg.
It's like, so sorry.
I don't think we've had a disagreement. I think we've just done Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Included? Like...
or we've just
or Smash.
Yeah, we super
Smash
smash each other, and then we curse at each other because that's healthy. And that's about it. But
what a beautiful thing that you're able to super smash each other.
We are able to super smash each other, and those who don't know Super Smash are definitely thinking, "What? They're what?"
They can super smash each other online nowadays.
It's anyone who doesn't know what this is, it's platonic.
Yes.
That's good.
But we would love to know, like, I know that you're doing these pitches and everything for some notable spots right now, but we'd love to know just kind of what are some of the stories that you guys are building over at Frenemy Studios.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for the executives that are listening in on this podcast, there's a pitch actually that a little autobiographical on my childhood. So for people who don't know me, and I didn't mention this in my origin story, I was diagnosed with Tourette syndrome at the age of 11. Pretty serious, like full verbal and physical tics, kind of all over the place. And it was a hard time, like be a teenager, a young adult, and then teenager, going through an invisible disorder that was so distracting and apparent, right? And often the media portrays Tourette as a cursing disorder or the person who can say obscenities, and that is so far from the truth. Actually, 1/10 of the Tourette population are only affected by what's called corporalia, which is the cursing tics. Fortunately, I have that, but it didn't help to like correct people when I'm, can't control and when I'm taught, I'm like ticking now, facial expressions or curses. So anyways, Victor and I had a great pitch. The log line is, a world where kids' invisible disorders actually take physical manifestations of creatures that we called hullabaloos. And we open up the show where a kid named Jack, not Zach, Jack gets visited by his hullabaloo TS, that stands for Tourette syndrome. And he has to learn to coexist. And then he gets assigned to the hullabaloo homeroom, which is, a hullabaloo that represents bipolar disorder, a hullabaloo that represents anxiety. And it's kind of like normalizing how kids coexist with their disorders that are classified, sometimes classified as invisible disorders. We don't see them right away. And really, I wanted a show that normalizes what it's like to live with an invisible disorder, both for the individual themselves, but the families and friends that have to learn and adapt and kind of grow. Like I commend my family. It wasn't easy, going to a restaurant with me, was not easy, so just having episodes that show that dynamic in a positive way, but also normalize it. And we got really far. We actually pitched like Disney, Netflix, Nickelodeon, and everyone really liked it. And it becomes the element of like the timing of things and who you know, right? So I really, really am confident, and I really want this to exist. So I think those two are like, one day we'll sell that show, because it stemmed from my journey, and I want kids to have something that's they can see themselves. I marvel at shows that do such a good job of representation.
Yeah, what
and
kind of
inclusiveness.
shows would you say have great representation of inclusion?
I think Steven Universe is a great example. I think it normalizes kids and people who are going through identity transitions and gender fluid notes and stuff like that. It did such a healthy balance of normalizing that, and in a fun cartoon, zany setting. The opposite is Feature. I really am digging the Mitchells versus the Machines, Mike Rianda, and produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Yeah.
Who are like gold. I like them.
So good.
Yeah, and what's great about this movie, please watch it. I've watched it 4 times. Is it does such a great job balancing, like that we love our family, and that means that we don't get along. We don't always have to like each other, but we're always there for each other. Like it has like this real element of a family dynamic, but also like kind of talks a commentary on how technology can be good and how technology can be bad, and it doesn't demonize it. It doesn't demonize father figures who are trying to relate to their daughter, and it doesn't demonize a daughter who is frustrated that her family doesn't understand her. It really does such a healthy balance of those characters' journeys, and it was just it normalized it. Like it didn't shy away of showing both sides of the same coin. And I thought that was very beautiful. I mean, you also look at like Inside Out. There's not one villain in that entire movie. There's no villain. And it normalizes that a happy memory can also be a sad memory. It normalizes the pressure that some parents can put on their kids and vice versa. And I think like that's a beautiful thing on a subconscious level, just to showcase to kids. I think kids are way more intuitive and intelligent than some cartoon shows pander to. And I just like, you talk about Studio Ghibli films, like the slice of life, aspect of what those movies do. And I think that is something that Western cinema, especially animation, is starting to catch up on. It's just these quiet moments that are the most interesting because they're the most accessible and real. They normalize something that we practice or do every day. And I think that's why those films are so successful.
Well, so I think I've been watching some videos on YouTube called Animators React from like Corridor Digital, and they talk about like the difference between the way that you're taught to draw in Japan versus the way you're taught to draw in America for those shows, and the distinction they made about like anime is that you're drawing for a feeling. That's why you have so many shots in anime that look like still they look like still images, but they convey so much power because you're seeing like these like random lines that are drawn to create momentum, but really it's just like it's one frame passing over a bunch of effects, and they're able to, obviously it makes it cheaper, but there's so much more that goes into that feeling and sensation, and that like especially as you're a kid, you feel that raw power and it's intense.
Yeah, it's more, I think for kids it's more tangible, and it conveys energy. Like, I think Japanese animation, I mean, look, I'm a huge manga and anime fan. I don't know it all, and I'm not versed at all, but I think those Japanese cinema and Japanese animation really do a good job of balancing those high concepts of fantasy or sci-fi or medieval, whatever, and just bringing it down to a human level that makes it accessible. I think that's what's so great about cartoons, right, or animation in general, is that you could exercise an like amazing idea that you wouldn't be able to do in live action, but still have those human elements. So an aspect of our pitching, Victor and I we make sure when we're pitching a show or a feature is like, why does this concept need to be animated? Like, what about this concept does not exist in the live action space? And, we just connect that kind of, inject that energy and what animation can stretch and afford us while retaining that human element of heart and sincerity. It's all really a part of our characters' journeys. It's just real problems in an extraordinary setting.
Do you think that's been the struggle of trying to get something like the project that you're talking about neurodivergence, and trying to get people trying to get these executives to understand why this matters, why it's so important, and yes, you do have an audience for this, because they do.
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's the famous stories of like Adventure Time was originally a Nickelodeon property, and then they gave up on it and it went to Cartoon Network. Ghostbusters took 43 times to be pitched and then bought. So like I do think that we'll eventually hopefully sell T.S. Hullabaloo. I think this is the timing of things and who you know, right? Aspect of pitching. It's just elements outside. I'm not in those meetings, so I can't really comment on them. The meetings outside of our pitch meeting on deciding if they're going to take the pitch or not. So I can't really comment on that. What we focus on is how our passion and vision will add to the library of content, whatever network or buyer that we're going to. And so what we're controlling is like, why does this concept need to be animated? And then this is a great question, Byron. So hopefully this answers it. It's like, why is this show or concept important to viewers and important to us? We make sure to inject those points in our pitch. Like, what is the viewer going to feel? Whether it's just entertainment that instills some sense of representation or lesson, we make sure to like have a piece of that in our pitch decks. And when we're pitching to someone, it's like, this is something, and often a line I see, this is something, and for T.S. Hullabaloo, it's genuine and truth to the core, is like, this is something I wish I saw when I was just diagnosed with Tourette syndrome, was to see that I can coexist with this disorder. Even though it's unpredictable, it's unknown, it's difficult at times, there's still joy to be in my life. Like, my life is not over. My life is not defined by having Tourette syndrome. And that's what I want T.S. Hullabaloo to be, is just, kids who have anxiety. And, like, it's okay for it to be difficult. There are going to be bad days. But guess what? There's going to be good days. There's going to be days where you learn that. And Byron and I, for the listeners out there, have been friends right when I first got Tourette,
So, we went to middle school together, and we were in the trenches together with what both of us were going through. Yeah.
So, and the point I'm making is that I think a great thing, and my wife marvels that Byron and our friend Adam and Danny and Wesley, we've been friends for so long, and it's because the camaraderie and companionship is, we've lifted each other up. And I've kind of lost a little bit of what I'm trying to say, but ultimately the TLDR is that I'm a better person for having the people I have in my life for so long. I'm strong and I'm resilient and I'm confident because I had Byron, who was doing stand-up, talking about being a stand-up comic. Remember those days, Byron? And having autism. And I've never told you this, but like just seeing you on stage and seeing you own that like it's a fine suit, that you're wearing it proudly and you're putting good into the world by positively talking about your stories with humor is impressive. It ingrained in me a sense of like, I need to do that. I not only need to do that, I want to do that. You know, and and
Yeah.
I'm so lucky to have these people in my life who continue to lift me up, sometimes unintentionally by their own positive and wonderful actions. Um, and a lot of our shows or concepts is just a little bit stories of the outcast who are trying to find their footing in the world and don't know what to do. And the journey is, well, the answer's right in front of you. You know, the answer being you have the friends who are right next to you who are going to help you save the day. You know, my favorite animated feature film is called Paranorman by Leica Studios. I'm a hardcore fan. The director's commentary of that movie is brilliant because it talks about, give it a watch if you're just a creative or just want to know inside. The directors are great and the writer. The answer to the movie's problem is the first line of the movie. I'm not going to spoil it, but the director's commentary says that. You know, I could spoil by saying, you know, can I spoil alert? Spoiler!
Spoiler, everybody.
Yeah, basically, the movie opens up to a fake zombie movie that Norman's watching, and then you realize he's watching with his deceased grandma, who's a ghost. And his grandma, played by Elaine Stritch, says, why don't they just talk to the zombies to stop? And that's the answer. Like, Norman's not listening because he could talk to the dead, and he realized he needs to listen to the zombies to stop the weirdness that is happening. And the director's commentary talks about, like, yeah, we literally tell you the answer of the conflict in the first line of the movie. And I thought that was so cool. Like, characters who are so clouded by justifiably an overwhelming problem or journey. And for Jack and TSL Blue, it's just like, he's got this hullabaloo all of a sudden, and he doesn't know how to process it, so he wants to shun people away, or he wants to bring people in, and he's not realizing he needs to listen to TS, and they need to work together to coexist. And they need to work together and ask for help, and learn, and those journeys. And the whole idea of the show is just like the different kids in the class, they'll have adventures together of like what it's like to coexist with these invisible disorders that are represented as these rambunctious creatures called hullabaloos. So again, Disney executives or Netflix executives, you can reach me at Zack@FriendofMeStudios.com.
I can give you, at least like from my experience growing up and having autism, like having shows like that, having characters that even if it's not explicitly like that, they have these that they're not neurodivergent. It's so helpful when you can see someone else going through the same thing that you're going through, because sometimes you don't have your own language and tools to be able to overcome the obstacles that you're trying to overcome. But when you can see someone else, and also that person is your favorite character, overcome those obstacles, it makes all of the difference. You end up learning and thinking about your problems in a very different way, and suddenly those problems are not problems anymore, they're tools. And I think that those tools, especially, like, it's why I've always loved cartoons and animation and anime, and even video games, these characters that are just they are larger than life, but they're very deeply human, and they have very deeply human problems, and they're nuanced. They're not just this black and white kind of thing.
I mean, very well put, Byron. I mean, that's exactly, you like crystallized what I was said for 10 minutes in like a 1-minute sentence. And I think that's beautiful. It's also like why I tell people Spirited Away by Studio Ghibli is exactly that, you know.
Yes.
It's a girl who is upset she's moving away from her hometown, and it's a story of a girl becoming a young adult and learning to change and adapt to change. And like that movie is so quiet about the human journey of Sen. It's very well done. I cry when I see that movie because like we were all that kid who struggled that identity of when you're a kid to a young adult, and when big change happens, how do we process that information? And for for her character, she's put in an extraordinary situation to come to terms with that transition. And I think that movie's just done so beautifully in quietly showcasing that.
What's it like transitioning from being this humble, optimistic animation fanatic into being a dad?
Yeah, you're a dad. I can't believe it.
I have to I can only guess that when Optimist, who is also probably partially extroverted, like working with people and doing all these things, you become a dad. I speak of this coming from my own experience of having a dog myself for 2 days. For like speaking from my own feelings of now you're having to learn a little bit of like, oh my God, this is what the world is like. I now have to protect this thing and all that kind of stuff. How do you do it?
You know, it's hard. Look, we got pregnant before the pandemic, and then we had Simon in July of 2020. You know, I was very fortunate that COVID had died down a little bit at the time before the second wave, that I was actually allowed in the delivery room. Like, that was a huge blessing. You know, things were kind of, they had just changed the policy, I think, 2 weeks before Simon was born, my son being Simon. And it's interesting. I've had a few friends who are like, well, you're raising a child, like, all they know is masks. You know, what's that going to be like moving forward? And my philosophy is like, well, I'm not going to shy away from the truth. I'm going to teach my son that I wear a mask to be respectful of the people around me. Even though I'm double vaxxed, I'm still going to wear a mask. Like, I'm going to show that it's neighborly and it's considerate. It's not a way to censor anyone. It's just a way to showcase that I care for the people around me. And like that, like the positive aspects of what the pandemic has brought to light, you know, is what I would do my best to distill. In terms of being a father, it's interesting. I mean, Hannah, my wife, we're constantly, we don't feel like parents yet. You know, he's not talking yet. You know, he's not saying words. He doesn't say, Dada, I love you. I think, but the way he smiles at me just like melts my heart. I love my breakfast time with him before work. But I want to kind of stress that, like, the journey of becoming a dad and like the identity of a dad is not instantaneous for everyone, and I think that's okay. Like, yes, I'm a parent and I can act as a parent, you know, but I'm learning this too for the first time, and I'm trying to, and my wife and I are really doing our best to just, yeah, it's okay. Like, we're not like insta parents. We're gonna make mistakes. We can ask for help, like, and like that identity sometimes, you know, not to say like I'm not a father. It's just like I don't feel like I'm a father. I care in for Simon deeply, but I can't wait where I am full dad title, you know, like if that makes sense. It's interesting, you know.
Yeah.
I'm also just a giant big kid, you know, for the people who can't see what's around me. I'm surrounded by comics and toys in my office, and I feel like a big kid.
Yeah.
I'm excited to share that.
You have more toys than your son.
Yeah, probably.
I already know you have more toys than your son.
For my wife who's listening to this later, and she's probably like screaming, hell yes. Or she's probably tapping me on the shoulder being like, I'm listening to the part where you're telling the world that yes, you do in fact have more toys than our child. And you know what, dear? Yes, you're right. I love you. You're the best. Thank you for your patience.
This is our moment of acknowledgement, and now we move on.
Yeah.
I
hear you, dear. Yeah.
It's so funny you say that, because I think one of the things that I've always thought of just there's two thoughts that have always run through my head. It's like, because I know you so well and I've known you since middle school, I mean, it's obviously the first notion of that guy's a dad, but then also it's the notion of that guy's a dad. Like, I've just thought of you that way forever, because like, especially your love for animation, your optimism, I've always felt like that's just gonna be the perfect cocktail for
Yeah.
your son, and like being able to, like, especially with all of these shows and movies that you've talked about so lovingly, like, are you excited to be able to just like show him those things?
Yeah, I'm over the moon. My wife jokes that, like, but what if he likes sports? My mom said something funny to that line. My mom said, like, you wouldn't know what to do with him, like, you know, it's true. I still love him. Of course, I love him. I'm so excited to share my passions with him. Like, that's honestly one of the biggest things I geek out about. And honestly, just to brag a little bit, he's such a happy baby. Hannah and I couldn't be more lucky of just, he sleeps most of the, even though we're dealing with this teething problem, like, we went out for breakfast and he's super chill, and he at daycare, he smiles at everyone. He's constantly smiling. So I'm either thinking to myself, like, either he's a psychopath or, like, we're doing something right, or maybe both. But it's such a blessing because everyone who knows us is like, their instant response is like, well, he has such great, happy parents. And that, I really appreciate being told that. There comes like a little bit of imposter syndrome there, but I guess there's some merit because people keep saying, like, you both carry yourselves with positivity, and I think it just passes on, like nurture versus nature, right? You talk about psychology. I think it just really, you're seeing it with Simon. He has such a lovely disposition, and I can't wait for his teeth to pop, and I can't wait for him to start talking to me, and I can't wait for him to be confused that his dad doesn't know how to play baseball, but we'll get there. So, yeah.
Just give me a call. I'll give you some tips, the basics.
Yeah, right?
We're good.
Yeah. You use a basketball and you hit the bat with the basketball, right?
No, that's
No,
basketball.
I'm not. Baseball.
That is actually basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is also a movie I weirdly enjoy still. Speaking of my love of shitty movies. So.
Well, Zach, we're coming to the end here. I gotta say, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. And I just hearing you talk about your experience as a dad, just to wrap that all up in a nice, pretty bow. I think it, like, so much of your positivity, where I've always seen it come from, and that I've seen it come from your wife Hannah as well, and I suspect is going to come from your son, but not from Groot. Never from Groot.
Yeah. Groot's my dog. It's not the tree that lives in a pot.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. It's the dog. He's got some eyebrows and attitude.
He's a sassy rescue, but damn is he cute.
He is cute.
I know that feeling.
Yeah. No, we wanted to ask you, we're coming to the end here, and we wanted to ask you about what's your future good? What's coming up on the horizon that you are excited for, that is or maybe even something that, what are you excited about?
For? What can you talk about?
Can you talk about is what I'm trying to say.
We're currently pitching something right now that it's actually one of the first ideas that I pitched about 6 years ago. We're kind of retailing it and bringing it out into the world again. I'm really proud of this pitch. I can't tell you what it is because it's currently being shopped around. So, cross all your fingers and toes, we sign and go into dev. I'd love for T.S. Hullabaloo to exist. I in my mind, I would love to have that show on air in 5 or 6 years. Because I think it's not this naive or blind confidence. It's just that I'm so passionate about all these stories I want to tell in a fun, extraordinary setting, that I want kids to see themselves on the screen, especially being that we don't often see invisible disorders represented, or neurological or neurodivergent disorders being represented on the silver screen, So I want that good to exist. I'm excited for that good to exist. And currently working on 2 new comic book ideas. So, we have, again, our original graphic novel. You can check us out at frenemies.studios.com. It's a very bare bones website. or email me at zach@friendofmestudios.com. But yeah, it's I'm excited to put our content out in the world. I couldn't have the most wonderful writing partner who pushes me in lovely ways and is patient with me, and someone I can rely on. I have a wonderful wife who is patient and lovely with my creative pursuits and my full-time job. I have a son who smiles at me all the time. So I can't complain. Look, this has been such a hard year for everyone. So, the good for the listeners that I'm listening now that I would instill in you is just try to see something good every day. That's what I tell myself. I've stolen your show. I'm now going to
You want to know what?
FillGood Rosenberg podcast.
It's better in your hands than ours.
We're going to just tap
Yeah.
out now. Zach, you've been a
Yeah.
pleasure. You've been great. Thank you so much for being here. We
Thank you, really.
are so enamored by you, and we wish you nothing but success in everything you do in the future.
Well, thank you. It was an honor being here, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to see how great I sound because your sound editing. I don't know
You
what I'm saying.
already
Cut
sound-
this, please.
No, you already sound marvelous, darling.
Marvelous.
Thank you.
Toodles,
Marvelous. Toodles. That was fantastic, Zach. It's always just so great chatting with him.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you this is Mike. This is your first time getting to chat with him, and I mean,
Yeah.
what did you think of this episode? What did you learn? What did you take away from Zach?
I mean, Zach had a very optimistic mindset, and
Yeah,
that's something that I like to think I had. And over the past couple of years, a lot of things have happened in my life, and it's been a one wild ride. And I'm trying to get that back. And Zach kind of gave me that motivation to really start going into things a little bit more optimistically, kind of wishing for the best intents of whatever creative ventures or anything that you're looking to do. I really respected that, and I'm very, very excited for all the work that he and Friend of Me Studios are doing. It sounds awesome. It sounds like a very great chance for a lot of the networks out there to get some neurodivergent goodness out into the world, and they should step up, or FillGood Studios is going to take over, and then we will do it for them.
I honestly, if we could get to that point, I would do it in a heartbeat.
So leave us 5 stars, and yeah. But Byron, what did you take away from this episode?
Well, to do with a lot of what I took away with him is his kind of what he tries to bring into his work with his with like cartoons and comics, the things that he's inspired by, also like what he is wanting to do with TS Hullabaloo, and like his story as a neurodivergent creator. And I actually didn't realize, I don't know if he had ever told me, like, because we talked a little bit about, like, I did stand up once upon a time. I didn't realize I had that kind of effect on him.
That part almost made me tear up, because I was like, oh man, this is such a touching moment. I was really happy about that.
For me, I view that, especially because I quit, and I can tell that story another time of why I quit, because it got dark for me. But the fact that I was able to convey something to him in some way, he was able to be inspired by that and take that, and that's his attitude about what, how he views not just his friends and the people he's inspired by, but also he sees it in the work that he does with Tumblr, coming back to that, like, assuming positive intent and moving forward in the space and the conversation with that, and trying to use that as the mechanism of which he progresses and tells his story too, is something that like I have been trying to figure out. And so it's re-inspired, coming full circle, he's re-inspired me. I'm not going back to stand-up, but it's given me perspective of like, oh, this is what in this podcast I've found. This is what in the things that I do in my life that I've found. This is something that like I'm very thankful. Zach, we absolutely love you, and I'm inspired by you, and I'm just so thankful that you just keep smiling the way you do. It's a beautiful smile.
The way you do, bud.
I think your wife knows that.
Yeah. Well, everybody, you can find our good friend Zack Rosenberg on the socials at Comic Nerd 1988. You can also find Frenemy Studios at Frenemy Studios. That's FRENEMY Studios.
They're on Twitter. They're on Instagram. You can find them at frenemystudios.com. And yeah, if you're looking to just have a positive, engaging conversation with Zack, like reach out to him. He's one of the friendliest people that I have ever met. Is why he's been a good friend for so long.
Yeah. And I can echo that of knowing him for probably about 2 weeks now. But no, he's very nice, and I cannot wait to chat with him again.
Yes.
In the future. But for everybody else, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the FillGood podcast on all your major podcast things. Rate us 5 stars if you happen to be on Apple Podcast. We have a 5-star rating right now. Let's keep that up.
Let's
keep it going. Leave us a comment. Let us know what makes you feel good. That would be super fun, super rad. Or you can just leave a little cheeky comment, and we'll see if we can reach out to it.
If you want to get a hold of us, you're an artist, or you just want to say hi, you want to learn more about what we're doing, we're FillGoodPodcast@gmail.com. Shoot us an email. We would love to hear from you.
Or you can find us on all the socials at FillGoodPod, FILLGOOD pod. And guys, we love you. Thank you for being here again. We want to give a big shout out to our team that helps us get this going. That's Alexia, that's Elisha, that's Wesley, and also thank you, Byron. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. And we will catch you on the flippity flop.
The flip.